Everyone, you can go ahead and be seated. Hello and welcome back to another Peaceful Solution Character Education Program certification class, where we are training teachers to teach parents the parenting manual as given from the Peaceful Solution. And we're going to jump right back into where we left off if you're following with us last week in class in lesson 10. Okay, so we're going to finish up. We have one more scenario in procedure number 6. So we're going to go ahead and go to lesson 10. Rewards and consequences really do work. And on lesson plan 10, page 10B, we're going to go ahead and read the procedure again so that we have that fresh in our mind before we go into our scenario. Okay, and it's the activity for procedure 6. And it says, tell students that they will get an opportunity to practice creating a rewards chart. Divide students into 5 groups and give each group a cutout. Explain the following hypothetical situation: that despite implementing positive disciplinary measures to deal with the behavior you have been assigned, the child persists in demonstrating the problematic behaviors. Devise a reward chart that fits the positive behavior you desire to see. Determine reasonable rewards and consequences for the child's age, and have students then share with the class. And remember last week we did a quick review through the entire unit of the parenting manual of different tips that we have learned on instructing a child and teaching a child and guiding a child, and not using force, but using education, compassion, and empathy as the guiding force and encouraging them to get back on the right path. All right, so we're going to go into the next page on lesson plan 10, page 10C, and read scenario number 5. And it says, your 6-year-old lies whenever he or she does something wrong and stubbornly refuses to tell the truth or admit that he or she is wrong in any way. Lately, he or she has started blaming a sibling for the things. Other disciplinary measures have not worked. And again, we want to keep in mind the environment that the child is being raised in as well. At 6 years old, sometimes we've already learned what a white lie is, that it's okay if you tell a white lie, or it's okay if you tell a lie but you cross your fingers behind your back. Like, then you don't get in trouble if you said a lie, if you're not being honest. What have they been taught? What do they know? What do they think in their minds is acceptable? And before we go into the rewards and consequences, always looking at the environment. 1, what do they know? What do they think is right? And having that open communication with them, asking them why they're lying, especially when they're stubbornly refusing to tell the truth. When it's blatantly obvious that they did wrong, there's no way to get out of it. Why do they feel the need? Why is this a need inside of them that they feel? Is it because they're terrified of the punishment that's coming? Because they're not scared enough of it not to do it, but somehow in their mind, they fear this. So if they keep lying enough, they won't get the consequence, or they won't have to suffer for the choice that they're making. So always have that open dialogue with the child and see their understanding of where they are. All right, but again, I did give you some examples of suggestions of consequences and rewards that can be used in this scenario. Okay, so for scenario number 5, some of the consequence is you can write sentences and explain what they have done wrong. Okay, and how they should behave in the future. So you're asking them, and then you're having them write the sentence based on what they understand. So it's going back into their mind. Another one is they can apologize to the person, and this is the important part, even if they refuse to admit they're wrong, still encourage them to apologize. Because then they see that whether I lie or not, this is something that I'm going to do. And they'll recognize and connect the dots between I did wrong, I apologize, I ask forgiveness. These are the proper steps to go about. Right? The next one is they can lose one item that they're most loved. They can lose it for 1 week. And that'll remind them every time they go to play with that toy or they go to use that special thing. They'll remember to be honest, and it'll be on the forefront of their mind. The last one is do not allow the child alone if they are outside of their own room. And that again, sometimes at 6 years old, they might not notice it as much, but as they get older, it will drive the child absolutely nuts to have somebody over their shoulder 24/7. And they will recognize that I don't like this feeling, the fact that I feel that nobody trusts me. and they'll want to change that behavior simply because of that emotion that it creates in them. All right, now some rewards that we have is you can do a fun activity with them that they love doing. Okay, again, bringing up the situation and then letting them know, laying it all out for them, what you expect of them. These are the consequences, but this is a possible reward for this scenario once you've worked towards being honest. Another one is write a chart acknowledging their progress. Whether you leave them little notes or you write it on, a board for them or something that they can visually see, that not only are they putting in a lot of work, but you are recognizing the effort that they are putting into it. And lastly, you can set aside special time to spend with the child. And again, they're only 6. So take that little time, do something creative with them, but spending that one-on-one time builds that relationship, and it will build trust that you will really need going on as they grow and mature. All right, so that concludes procedure 6 for the activity. So we're going to go back to lesson plan 10B and conclude the lesson in procedure 7. It says, conclude by encouraging parents to begin implementing a rewards chart that will help change their children's undesirable behaviors to acceptable behaviors and put them on the path to developing positive moral character. And again, that's how we want to wrap up the class, by constantly encouraging, always encouraging, motivating, and stirring our parents to action to see that even though they see their failures, even though they see where they're struggling, look for the small hope that makes you see that it is working. Look for the small glimpse that makes the big picture where you can all see it being worthwhile. All right, so that concludes lesson 10. So give yourselves a hand. We've made it all the way through lesson 10. So we're going to go into lesson 11. All right, so lesson plan 11, which is found on lesson plan 11, page 11A. And this one is entitled A Special Note About Young Adults. Now, the purpose and objective of this lesson is that students will learn how to encourage their young adults and teenagers towards positive character development. Okay, so over the course of this lesson, we're wanting to encourage them to motivate their youth, whether it's a teenager or a young adult, to motivate them to develop positive character. Some materials that you will need is, of course, your parenting manual. You're going to need activity cutouts and pens and pencils for the activity. Now, procedure number 1, again, is the review, and it's briefly review lesson 10, rewards and consequences really do work, by asking the following questions. Question number 1, what are some benefits of a reward system? And they do give us some answers here, but again, if you are teaching it to your parents, if you're blessed to have a group of parents, most likely when you're teaching the parenting manual, it is one-on-one. So if you're teaching and you're hoping to have a lot of class participation, I'm sorry to let you down. You're going to be doing a lot of talking and teaching these lessons because it most likely is going to be one-on-one. But have them share with you, create a discussion as you're reviewing. Get to know, okay, what did you learn from this? What's something that you implemented at home? All right, some benefits that you yourself have taken from this lesson that we went over. Not necessarily book answers, but what you yourself have learned and how you've implemented this in your life. Now, some examples that they do give us here is it's a measure of motivation. It helps parents and child to recognize the growth in positive character, and it helps parents to focus more on the child's positive behavior. And that was the purpose of lesson 10, is to redirect our focus from the negative and focus it on the positive so that you can see, even though you're dealing with a problematic behavior, the child themselves is not problematic, and distinguishing that too. If you want to make a reference, we did cover that on page 79. So for question number 1, that was covered in depth on page 79. Question B, name a few pointers for formulating a rewards chart. And again, you're going to want to get feedback from them. Off of whatever examples that you shared, talk with them. Did you share this with your friends? Did your friends have any other examples? Did your mother or your grandparents? Like when you left this class and you were talking to other people, what other ideas did you generate that you can tie in with this so that we can share and we can learn and grow together? All right, some examples they give here is to be clear about the behaviors that you expect, Focus on about only 4 behaviors at a time. Give rewards for demonstration of desired behavior, and have consequences that are age appropriate and fit that behavior. Okay, and that question was answered on page 81. So that's where we can find the answers to that question there. And our final question is, in implementing rules, what is the hardest yet most important trait to maintain? What do you think that word is? Consistency, yes. It is consistency, and we had covered that on page 82 under the heading Be Consistent. That's the most important and the most effective part of the rewards and consequences, is being consistent with it, where they know what to expect. It's laid down, parent, child, both understand what is expected of both of them, and they're standing firm and they're holding on to what is expected. All right, so we're going to go into procedure number 2. It says, ask the class how many of them have teenage children. So how many of you either have a teenager or you interact with teenagers on a regular basis? All right, so we have quite a few. All right, now how many of you have a child or interact with a child under the age of 13? All right, so one thing to keep in mind, and it does give us a note here, that even if the parents who are in your class don't have teenagers right now, or they already are adults, or maybe they're under the age of 13, your time is coming. So just prepare and take what you can from this lesson so that you can better prepare your mind and start laying the foundation with your younger children for the tools that they will need when they enter adulthood or being a teenager. Continue on to procedure 2. It says, what are some of the challenges they are faced with during the children's adolescent and teenage years? Okay, and this is a question for the parents. What are some challenges that you are faced with? And if you think about it, because I was speaking with my parents to see from when I'm raising my children to when they were raising me, what challenges changed in society? And I want to challenge you to consider the same thing. Think of when you were a teenager or when you were raising your children versus the society we live in today. What challenges have changed? And what challenges have stayed exactly the same? Because when they were in high school, when I were raising me, now that I'm grown, we still have drugs, we still have overdoses, we still have alcoholism, we still have teenage pregnancies, we still have suicide, we still have depression, we still have mental health disorders. We have all of the same challenges that we had in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, all the way into 2021, the same challenges that we're all facing. So one thing to keep in mind here is the challenges might not have changed, and we're going to cover a few of the basic ones, but the problem is still the same. What we're doing is not working. What we're doing is not reshaping the world into what it can be. What we're doing right now on a global scale that starts inside our homes is not changing for the better. And that's the whole goal of the Peaceful Solution, is it's a thought-provoking program. It gets you to question, to think about your every interaction, your every word that you say to someone else, everything that we do. Not only how it affects me, how it affects you, how it affects my child. When I say it in front of my child, who is my child talking to? What are they posting online that this one phrase I said in the privacy of my home is now spread globally? And now everybody is saying what I thought was private in my own home that I was saying. It's now being said across the globe. All right, now some examples that I have here that were shared with me, challenges that parents face when raising their teens today, is one is society standards of what a child should be doing by the age of 13, or how your life should be by the age of 18. Or, what age you should have your first car, or when you should have your first phone, or when you should have internet on that phone, when you should go on your first date, when you should be unsupervised going out, if you should go out alone, or if you should be able to go in groups. All of these standards are debated depending on where you live and where you grow up. Another one is you have the challenges of other parents and their ideas of how their child should be raised. And that sometimes can counteract with your beliefs and how you believe that your child should be raised. And then we have our past personal experiences of the ways that we were raised or the way that our parents were raised, and it was passed on to us. And for that example, I want you to think of whenever you were growing up, whenever a serious problem came up, whether you had, a loss of a family member or somebody died unexpectedly, or a serious unexpected tragedy came up in your life, how did you deal with it? How did those around you deal with it? Did they go to alcohol? Did they go to drugs? Did they go to Six Flags? Did they take a vacation? Did they escape for a week so they didn't have to deal with those emotions right then? Because that's kind of the ideas that we're thinking of here, is that as you move forward, as you grew up, when you found yourself in a hard time, is that what we went to? Is that because that's our crutch? That's all we've known. And a lot of times people fall into, a bad situation because it's the only way they know to deal with a hard time, or it's the only way they can cope with these emotions. Okay, another one is, especially in this day and age, we struggle with balancing our family with our career. And it's hard to find that middle ground to where you have that open dialogue, you have that conversation with your family where you're fully present. But then you have to put food on the table. You have to keep the lights on. You have to make sure they have internet on their phones. They have laptops. You have to make sure everything is taken care of. Let's see, another one is we have social media and the addiction that comes with that. And that's not just on teens and young adults, that's all the way into parents as well. But we become addicted to social media, but it also gives us a level of disconnect to where we feel more connected to someone on the other side of the globe than I do to the person sitting across from me. Because I will bare my soul to a complete stranger. But the person sitting across the table from me, I can't open up and tell the truth of how I'm feeling or what I'm going through. And that's something that we see, various ages that we're struggling with in our society today. All right, and the last one I'll leave you with is another challenge that we all face is challenging authority and going through the quote-unquote know-it-all attitude, where we don't really know everything, but we feel we know enough to get us by without somebody telling us all the time what we're doing wrong. These are the challenges that parents are facing as we go forward here. All right, so we're going to go into procedure number 3, and again, that's just a lot of interaction and getting, seeing what they're feeling in that moment, what struggles they go through. You learn a lot about their past, what they're dealing with, how they deal with the situations, and with their children. So that really is just a more of a get to know your knowledge base, your education, and what you do, how you deal with those problems. All right, so we'll go into procedure 3. It says, emphasize that one of the first steps in helping our young adults is to take responsibility for the mistakes we have made in parenting them. Then desire and make steps on changing or fixing those mistakes. And that again goes back to parent self-evaluation. As we're training our children, as we're working with them, always evaluating ourselves and not letting ourselves be lost in the midst of training the child, motivating our own positive moral character. All right, it says choose students to read page 83, reinforce that heredity, environment, and influences help shape the character and personality of our children. Allot time for students to complete the activity on pages 83 and 84. Choose volunteers to share their answers with the class. Okay, and so for those 3 words in the top of this procedure here where it says reinforce that heredity, if you want to circle that word, and you can reference that in detail to the Building Moral Excellence, page 12. Okay, the Building Moral Excellence, page 12, and I'm going to read just a few excerpts from that page, and it says, before you were born, the combination of your parents' genes started forming your physical traits, such as the color of your eyes, your skin, and your hair. But did you know that genetics is also responsible for the behavioral similarities that you share with your parents and your family members? Inherited behavioral traits such as aggression can be altered by choices, the environment, and influences that are present in an individual's life. For example, a child who has a propensity for aggression can be trained to control their thoughts and actions to avoid acting aggressively. And again, it goes back to being aware of our thoughts. When we're aware of our thoughts, we can be aware of our feelings, then we can be aware of our actions, and then we can keep ourselves from making decisions or choices that we will later on regret. The next word, environment, you can reference that to the Building Moral Excellence, page 17. Okay, so for environment, Building Moral Excellence, page 17. It says, in addition to your inherited behavioral traits and your values, environment also plays a key role in the development of your character. Another important aspect of your environment is the community where you live and your involvement with the members of that community. All of these play a key part in your development of your character. Okay, and for the word influences, if you want to reference that to the character unit, page 60. Okay, so influences is the character unit, page 60. And then we're going to flip over to page 83 and start procedure 3. It says, lesson 11, a special note about young adults. Even if your adolescence is exhibiting challenging, oppositional, or disrespectful behavior, it is not too late to instill moral values. And remember, way back in the character unit on page 8, we talked about that morality is that line that divides right behavior from wrong behavior. So in our everyday interactions and our everyday choices, when we see if something is moral or immoral, it separates right from wrong. And if you want to circle the word moral values, you can reference the Building Moral Excellence unit, page 13. Building Moral Excellence unit, page 13. And it says, your values are the principles or qualities that you consider to be important or worthwhile. They also play a key role in the formation of your character and your personality. There are many different types of moral values. Other values pertain to what you want to accomplish in life and whether you think it's and what you consider to be beautiful. All right, so the ones that are your moral values are the ones that pertain to how we think and how we behave. Okay, continue on page 83. It says, moral values, and to help him or her see the importance of developing a positive character. You can teach even your older children the value of respect, responsibility, self-control, and humility. All right, and if you want to do a reference to the word respect, to the respect unit, page 26. Respect unit, page 26. And it's at the heading of that page, and it's entitled Self-Respect Is. Self-respect is knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you value. Self-respect also involves caring about yourself physically and mentally to promote positive growth and development. And again, that's self-respect. It's knowing who you are and what you believe in, knowing what you stand for, which means we're aware, we're considering, we're constantly, taking charge of what we're doing. And I know a few classes back we talked about journaling so that you can see your thoughts. If something triggers an emotion inside of you, what caused that to trigger? What caused us to feel this way? What brings this emotion up so that we can identify it for ourselves? All right, for responsibility, we can reference the responsibility unit, page 42. Responsibility, page 42, under I have a responsibility to myself. It says you have an obligation to yourself to continuously seek ways to develop and improve your character. To do this, you must be accountable for your actions, accept the advice of those in authority, and use self-control to make proper decisions. You must be willing to follow the rules and guidelines that dictate morals and proper conduct. When you hold yourself to a high standard, you are being responsible for the gift of life that you have been given. And we're doing a lot of referencing here tonight, but I want you to keep in mind that as training through the certification course to become teachers, we have to tie everything in together. So being the parenting manual, we've reached so many units that when we go forth to teach the parenting manual, all your students are going to know is what's in this book and what you retained from the class. So as teachers, we have to have all of these references in our mind when we go forth because that's all they're going to know. The only thing they know is what we've retained in class, and we present that in our teachings. Okay, so we are doing a lot of referencing, but keep that in mind. That's to put it in the forefront of our mind. All right, going back to page 83, it says, "It is a sobering thought, but when our children fail to develop or consistently practice positive character, we as parents are often to blame." In other words, children do and say what they are taught. Okay, that's something to keep in mind. And we're not saying this to, belittle parents or to make them feel as failures. We're saying this again to recognize both parties. What contributes to this scenario? What brought this situation to where it is? Because once we recognize, the factors that go into it, we can start to pull apart the pieces that make it into a better situation. It says, "Remember, it is the combination of our genetics, our environment, and our culture that shapes us into who we are." Okay, again, it goes into those influences in the environment that we're in, the people that our children are around when they go to school, those that they interact with when they go to the store, when they're going into the public park. All of these things all tie in together with their environment. It says, "Are specific character and personality traits dominant in your family?" And again, self-evaluation. If you've had 3 children and they all have the same behavioral traits when they hit their teens, think about when you were a teenager. You'll find a lot of the same things. How did you work through it? How did you deal with it? What did you turn to help you through that situation? They're going to more than likely fall into the same category. What about the influences? What influences? What music are they listening to? What video games are they playing? What movies are they watching? What friends are they hanging out with? What parties are they going to? What social media sites or what online sites have they fallen into that have played into the choices that they're making today? It says, "Was your child allowed to watch violent, sexually suggestive shows on TV? Do you live in an environment that is dysfunctional or a community where safety is a concern?" All of these are questions that as parents we want to be asking ourselves. And from the Peaceful Solution, we understand that a lot of the times parents are in a situation that even if you saved every nickel and dime and penny that you have in this lifetime, it's not possible for you to get out of that situation. We understand that. And we're not saying that because you're in that place or you're in that side of the woods or you're in that neighborhood that you can't do better. And we're not saying that that holds you back from reaching your full potential. Because even if you live in the middle of nowhere and you don't have a penny to your name, you have a life and you have a moral character and you yourself have a contribution to make to society. As a parent, you have the same ability as anybody else on this earth to raise a child who can grow up, who can, become the next president. They can become an amazing therapist. They can grow past the situation that they are now. In 2 and 3 generations, they could become a person that you wouldn't even recognize or think possible today. So keep those in mind, that just because we're in a dysfunctional situation, just because we're in a hard place now, life doesn't always stay that way. We can motivate and we can move forward if we have the vision and if we have the determination. It says all of these factors can have an overwhelming impact on children that can manifest itself in defiant, lackadaisical, or immoral behaviors. And if you're like me and you didn't know what the word lackadaisical means, it means a lack of enthusiasm, determination, careless, or lazy. Okay, so lacks enthusiasm, determination, careless, and lazy. So that's what it means to be lackadaisical. All right, it says that parents must continually evaluate to improve their positive characters. So in fact, it will branch out and it will, impact their child to develop positive moral character. Also, keep in mind that we are all a combination of both positive and negative traits. Therefore, as challenging as the adolescent years might be, your child still has many great qualities that you can accentuate while helping him to eliminate the negative. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to the next teacher, and we're going to go into this self-evaluation, but I want to leave you with that encouraging thought to constantly always make sure we are encouraging and motivating not only ourselves as parents, but motivating our children to become the best that they can be regardless of where they stand today. With that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
All right. Didn't Brittany do an excellent job? Really, this lesson about our young adults is very near and dear to my heart. I work with a lot of young adults. I have 3 young adults, so I'm learning along with all of you how to be a parent too, not just how to teach other parents, but I've been learning how to be a parent now for almost 20 years. So it is a hard job, but it's one of the most rewarding jobs. And I know the Peaceful Solution tells us it is one of the most important jobs that anyone could ever have. And what it pays is far more valuable than any amount of money you could ever earn in a lifetime. All right. So we're going to pick up here. And I just want to rehearse this at the bottom here of page 83, keeping in mind that we are all a combination of both positive and negative traits. Therefore, as challenging as the adolescent years can be, your child still has many great qualities that you can accentuate while helping him or her to eliminate the negative. And that's something we're going to continue that theme of focusing on the positive with our young people. That's very important not to forget about when you're facing challenges with them, because no matter how many negative character traits they display, they do have positive character traits, just like us. We display negative character traits too. So, we have to remind our parents that we're teaching that it's very important that they build up their children and look for the positive things they do. All right, so there is a little evaluate the situation here and questions that the parent can answer. And these, if you go back to, I know Brittany referred to it in our last class parenting, pages 13 and 14, talk about things to work on, like if you make mistakes and the difference between what are not mistakes and what are mistakes, or what are actually abusive behaviors and what are real mistakes that parents make. And we constantly are evaluating and teaching the parents they need to evaluate themselves as they're going through this process of parenting. So here, these are areas to work on, and your child will learn, they will learn how to work on their own areas by watching you work on yours. So this is one of those, we're going to talk a lot about role modeling too here in the tips coming up. So, realize that everything you do, you're role modeling to the children in your life, the children that you see, even if you're not a parent and you deal with children, or children see you on a daily basis, they're observing you and they're watching you, and they're learning about your character by watching you. Okay, so this is just to show us, okay, what do I need to work on? And then also to think about the children in the parents' lives, list some of the adolescents' positive character traits. Okay, so now think about them and what are their positive character traits? They have them. Now list them. And then on top of page 84, it says, how would you like to see the behavior of your adolescent change? List them below. Okay, so here's thinking about what are the negative ones that, we're struggling with, and how would you like them to change? And remember that parents are guides who need to help their children set goals for the future. Okay? Children aren't just like born with the idea of what they're going to do as they grow up. They are shaped and molded, and they're given opportunities. And as a parent, we have to find out, what is our children interested in? What would they like to achieve? Where do they see themselves as they grow up? Encouraging them and always trying to be a motivation for them that they can do great things. But, what are those great things? Encourage them to have goals. So now we're going to go, we're just going to read this little quote here. And I sent this quote out to some people today, and they were kind enough to help give me their thoughts on it. In the box there on the top of page 84, it says, positive character should never have a generation gap. And if we could show their answers, I'm just going to look over there because I didn't make myself a copy. But you can see that if you look at these answers here, age has nothing to do with character. Okay? Would we agree with that? Yes, okay? Some people say, I can say or do this because I'm young, or I've earned the right to say or do whatever I want. There's no excuses for rude behavior. No, that's supposed to be matter what your age is. Would you agree with that? Yes, there's no excuse, okay? No matter the age. No matter how old or young your character should be positive. You are never too old or too young to have it, and positive character is the same no matter what age. Are we getting a theme here in the answers? Okay, these are all different people, and they didn't hear each other's answers either. If it were practiced, we wouldn't know what a generation gap is because we would always push for what is right. When we hear generational gap, it causes separation and miscommunication and labels. And so they're breaking down that quote there and saying, okay, well, why are we calling it this? Why is there this generation gap? And that is how some people view society, right? And we in this parenting manual are bridging a huge gap because there is a huge gap between children today and their parents. So, we have to recognize it exists, and then we have to show how positive character is the bridge, okay? It connects children with their parents. And then the next comment we had was all generations should be taught positive character. We should not expect a person should be less moral because they are from this present generation. And I really like that point, right? Because a lot of times as, parents and as we get older, we think, man, society's just going down. They're worse and worse. But like I just said, and, we just covered here, children have positive character traits, right? Sometimes they're just being hidden by all of the negative that's going on. And then the last couple here, when young people say, that's old-fashioned, or that was back in your time, these suggest there is a generation gap, but positive character should not be considered old-fashioned. It should be taught and practiced throughout time. Okay, and I thought that was really nice. And then to end with, somebody rewrote the quote. So they said, with character education, there is no gap between generations. All right, so that was nice. Thank you for your participation, and y'all, continue to think on that because it is true. And the general theme is there is no difference in however old you are, whether a child is 1 year old or they're not even born yet. They can be being taught character education, right, in the womb. We've already covered that is valid. They're learning in the womb. So a mother can teach her child positive character still. Okay, so now we're going to turn back to LP 11B, and this is procedure 4. Explain to students that it is important to remember our young adult's positive character traits even when he or she is being oppositional or disrespectful. Choose students to read tips for young adults, 1 through 4 found on page 84, and then re-emphasize the need to become role models of positive moral character and to practice active listening skills to encourage your children to speak out rather than act out. And, for sake of time and the size of our classroom, we're not going to read them. We're not going to have everyone read them. But, generally when you're having these parenting classes, it's just a nice, small size class. And sometimes you're just it's one-on-one with parents so that you can take turns with them and get that reading interaction too. And something to instill here is to remind your parents that they are the most influential teachers in a child's life. And that is stated at the beginning of this book and on the note to parents on page G. So you can write that there and you can take them back there if you want to and rehearse that. It's in the note to the parents on page G. So now we're going to turn back to page 84, and we're going to take our time through these tips. I know these lessons they seem really short, but they're very meaty, so we're not going to rush through them. And it says, tips for young adults. It is very important that we keep in mind that our adolescents are worthwhile people with positive character and great value and potential. And I looked up that word worthwhile, okay? Because a lot of times we have words and it's like, well, what does that mean? They're worthwhile. But it means being worth the time or effort spent. Now, you know, as a child, as a baby, there is a lot of time and effort put into them, right? When they need everything. They're helpless. They need to be cleaned and fed and put to sleep and bathed, and everything needs to be done for them and taught to them how to do it, how to walk, how to speak, all of it, right? How to write as they get older. It's all on the parents, okay? The parents are responsible for that from the start. So think, though, as the child grows and becomes an adolescent, becomes, you know, gets into their preteen and teenage years, how much effort and time are we spending on them? It is crucial that we still put effort and time into these young people. They are so in desperate need of it. They want to know they're valuable to their parents. And so as teachers, we have to really stress that to the parents. It's not over once they can walk and talk and they're going to school now on their own. You know, they're sent off to school and come home at the end of the day. Oh no, you still got a lot of work to do. And we should never be too tired for that parenting job, because it's a great opportunity that we have. And the thing that we are putting within them when we take the time with them and show them how worthwhile we feel they are, is that they will value themselves. They will recognize that they are someone that can contribute to society, because the people who gave them birth and raised them up think so. And I'm telling you, parents and teachers, that is probably one of the most important ideas a child has in their mind, is what is the opinion their parents have of them, okay? So that's something we really need to understand and convey to the parents that we're teaching. And yes, they already have positive character, right? Because we all have that balance. We have a mix. And they have great value and potential to become some positive benefit for society. So even when, now the sentence continues here, even when faced with their oppositional and disrespectful behaviors, right? Okay, so now I did all that building up, but now here's the reality, right? On a daily basis, there are hardships, there are difficulties, there's struggles, especially in a young person's mind. They're dealing with a lot. So we have to remember that they're going through a lot, and it doesn't give them the right to be disrespectful, but we have to learn how to process it properly and deal with it properly so that we don't become disrespectful in turn to them. So here are some tips to help your adolescent develop positive moral character. And these are really, really awesome. And there's a few themes throughout here that I think I'll emphasize and you'll get that are really important, okay? So number 1, demonstrates positive moral character at all times. All right, and I had a quote, I just wanted to show you this as a reminder. If we can get the picture on the screen, this is from Building Moral Excellence, page 20. So it should be familiar to our students here who are taking our certification course, because this is the positive character traits. You all see that? Okay, and then I blew it up a little bit for you because that's pretty tiny. And, you know, a few of these, you know, it's saying demonstrate positive moral character at all times. Now, how many of you out there, teachers, are perfect? Like in everything you do, you're perfect. I do not see one hand up. Okay. Does that mean you cannot demonstrate positive moral character at all times? No, it doesn't. It's an interesting statement, and I thought about it for a while, because it says here, impress upon your adolescent that you are making positive changes in your life to become a better person and a better parent. So it doesn't mean you have to be perfect in everything you do, but it means you're conscious of your choices that you're making. And when you make a wrong choice, because you will, and you know, these parents made wrong choices, and that's why they have come to this class to learn and to be taught, you know, how to make better choices, then there's something called apologizing, right? And if a parent can apologize to their child for screwing up, right, making a mistake, doing something wrong, then making an immoral choice, that's the start of reversing it. And that actually teaches a child certain character traits like humility and forgiveness, right? So, and mercy. So there is you can see from these character traits that and self-control. See, there's a lot that we can teach our young people, whether we're making right choices all the time or not, because we will fall and we will have to get back up. But when we do, we're displaying more character traits. And so we want to be aware of that. And when we can admit, when a parent can admit that they're wrong and teach humility, that's probably one of the best character traits that an adult can, be an example of to a young person. Because it shows them it's okay to make mistakes, and, it's okay to be, to recognize it and to go forward, to move forward in a positive way and make it better. There's a way to fix things, okay? And we have to teach that. And you can also reference the character unit pages 14 and 15, because that's where we find it in there. And in all of the intermediate series, the positive character traits and the negative, they're in the back of all the books. So then point 2, as much as you are able to change your environment to reflect your new values and lifestyles, do you have okay, so you're changing your environment, right? And we heard Brittany talk about environment. And she even referenced Parenting Manual, page 17 for us. So you could put that reference there if you want to give it to, to go back with your students about it and reflect so that these things will reflect your new values and lifestyle. So here's some examples of things that parents could get rid of. Do you have a collection of violent or inappropriate movies? Okay, throw them away. Replace them with family-oriented activities such as learning hobbies together, cleaning the garage, or learning an instrument, or just take the time to find out what is new in your child's life. And I do that before most of the other things because that's a daily thing, right? How was your day? What's going on? What do you want to do today? Or what do you want to do this week? Or, make plans with them and find out what they like, okay? And number 3, talk to your child about your high expectations for him. Okay, now here's where the parent gets to talk, okay? But there's going to be more to that. So this is the part where you get to tell them about your expectations, but don't assume that he or she understands what you want for him, okay? A lot of times we think, well, they should know. Have you ever heard that? Well, they should know. Nobody knows your expectations until you tell them, okay? That is really important. That's called communication. And when we think something in our minds, we can't just automatically think other people are thinking the same thing, right? I don't know about you, but I don't have that ability to just transfer my thought into your thought over there, or your thought over here. That doesn't work. But when we speak the words, then we convey messages, okay? So it's very important to let our young people know what we're expecting of them. There haven't been this, remember, we're being faced with some opposition and some disrespectful behavior. So, in this situation, it would probably be, I really don't like how you're speaking to me. I would like it if, you use this tone when you're speaking to me. If you calm down before you start speaking, and then we can have a conversation, and I'll be able to listen, and you'll be able to listen. And, give them an expectation like that so that they understand, well, you don't listen to me, and you're not, no, well, first I'd like you to calm down, then I can listen to you, right? Once they know that expectation, and you repeat it a few times, because you might have to repeat it to them, right, until they understand, look, I can't talk to her until I calm down, right? Once they understand that, they'll start practicing it because they do want to talk to you and they want you to listen to them. But make sure you let them know. Talk to him about what he sees for his future, his goals and his plans. Then help him see what it will take to get there. Okay, now that is kind of more on the broader scale of things, but even in, you can bring that down to little situations going on too. What do you want to be this way? Do you want to be back talking to me and to everyone else you come in contact? Well, that's just the way I am. Is that really how you want to be? You know, not just making goals of who you want to be, but who do you want to be morally is the most important, because everything else will, you know, fall into place once you have a moral character to stand on. Okay, so explain that to the child. And that's important, that we, you know, those are the things our children need to hear, that as parents, it's our job to teach them. And I'm just looking at my notes here. So giving guidance is important and can also help your child to avoid making, you know, worse choices down the line, right? If you give them examples of their behavior and you say, if you do this, you go off here and you do this with so-and-so, you act like this, they might treat you differently than I'm treating you right now, you know, and you can show them what might take place in the future, right, if they act like that, so that they can see and they can get an understanding of, well, you're right, I probably don't want to act like that. Okay, let's move on to procedure 4, and this is the last one in procedure 4 that we read earlier. So procedure 4 says, listen more than you talk. Listen more than you talk. I'm going to say it again. Listen more than you talk. Listening requires keeping this closed and keeping these open, very open. And this will still be going. This will still be going, but you have to make sure this stays closed, right? As parents, we want to impart all the knowledge we have on our children. I've done this quite a bit. I can tell from my own experience. I want to tell them everything I know so they don't make any mistakes and so they get it right the next time, right? But it says here, allow your child to speak to you with respect and use your active listening skills to encourage him to talk. Because then you start to understand what they're thinking about, right? If we're always busy telling them what we're thinking about, do we ever take the opportunity to get feedback from them, to hear how they processed what we said, to hear what's just taking place? Why are they behaving the way they're behaving in the first place? I would say more times than not, if we told parents that the first thing you should do in a situation with your child is stop and ask them, what's wrong? What's going on? Can you talk to me? If we open the door for them, they will start talking. And they will start letting you know what's really wrong, instead of being like, you shouldn't do this and you need to stop that and quit it right now, go to your room. Which one would you open up to? You know, we have to get over to the parents that their behavior is really it's behavior is a, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, it's a symptom. Thank you. It's a symptom to a much bigger problem in their lives. Remember how we said in the last class that acting out, you know, to get attention? Okay, well, the behaviors, negative behaviors there's something else going on. They're struggling, and we have to recognize they're struggling, and we need to start listening to why they're struggling. They might be bullied in school, and we'd have no clue. We just thought, man, why are you behaving so terrible to the teacher? And, you know, why are you getting such bad grades? And whatever the problem is, look at it as a symptom, okay? You got a cold, you're sneezing, runny nose. What are you going to do? Just keep sneezing and let your nose run? No, you're going to go do something to get rid of the cold, right? That's causing the symptoms. You're going to, you know, start taking supplements and getting rest and, you know, taking, you know, a little more care of yourself. So same thing with with the children, you know, that we have to recognize these are symptoms to problems in their lives, and we can help them with their problems, but only if we apply this point 4 here. Listen more than we talk, okay? And I would like to show you We talk about active listening skills, and I have a couple overheads here. Okay, the first one is showing you where it is, and this is, it's page 93. I wrote it in my book, I think. Yeah, in the self-control unit, and you can see that, and then I blew it up there for you. Okay, so here's why it's important to have active listening. Okay. Did you know that another important part of communication is listening? Think about it. You can talk all day, but if the person you are talking to cannot hear or understand a word you have said, then you have not communicated. Self-control when listening means to make sure through active listening that you are not only hearing what is being said, but that you also understand the intent behind the words. And I made that bold, right? Intent behind the words. In other words, you are trying to comprehend what the person is saying and feeling. Okay? Really, what's going on in their heart? Okay? Learning to be an active listener will help you to solve problems and disagreements because it opens the door to communicating in a way that is respectful and caring. Remember, go to your room. What's wrong? Right? There's two options we have, and we have to explain to our, as teachers, we have to get across there's always those two options parents have. And they can make the choice to shut the child off, close the door, or they can make the choice to open that door back up. All right, so it says here, and we just read it, look for intent in the words. Like, what's behind what they're saying? Only when you are aware of their feelings, needs, and concerns, or what gives him joy, sadness, or pain, can you guide him in a positive direction, right? That is exactly what we just read there in page 93 of the self-control unit. So we got to get in tune with our children and what's going on in their minds and in their hearts, right? And then we can make a connection with them. Okay, and I also had the tips up here for active listening. So if we can put those on the screen. Reflect what you think the speaker is feeling. Okay, so that's giving them a little feedback. You sound sad. Doesn't mean you have to give them just repeat everything they said, but how do you think they're feeling? Okay. Don't interpret or change the topic until you are sure the other person is finished speaking. Well, do you know what I did today? No, don't. Don't interrupt them and don't move on. Make sure that they get out everything they want to tell you. Was there anything else you did today? Even ask follow-up questions like that. Use an appropriate amount of eye contact, okay? And, if we're doing something while our child is talking to us, we still need to use an appropriate amount of eye contact. I could be doing the dishes or cooking supper, but look, we shouldn't be having a conversation from 2 rooms away. If they're in the room there and we're talking, looking over at them and, giving them that, see, I am listening to you, making sure they know that and give them an appropriate amount of eye contact. Okay, so that is everything I wanted to show you on active listening. And those tips, did I actually put where they're found? Yeah, y'all saw that? Self-control unit, page 95. So that's really, that whole section there is all on active listening. Okay, so now that completed procedure 4. So procedure 4 went from tips for young adults all the way down to point 4. Okay, and now we go back to LP 11B. That's where procedure 5 is. And we're just going to read it tonight, okay? Talk about the importance of friends and role models to our young adults. What are some concerns parents might have about their children's friends? And answers will vary. Ask, what are some of the role models children have in our society today, and are they positive or negative? And then it tells us to go into tips 5 and 6 on page 84 and 85 and talk about some of the interventions we can use to help children make better choices. So that's where we're going to end today. You can put that procedure in your books above point 5, and we'll continue on next week. And thank you for your attention. You all did great tonight.